Um, Hi there, how are you? I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome back to my beautiful channel 2024. And we have him, he's in the house, our resident, our one and only George H. Lewis. Welcome, my darling.
Hi, Dani. Happy New Year. It's really nice to be back.
Yeah, you too, mate, you too. Listen, let's jump straight into the back end of the astrology for last year, 2023, before we dive into the beauteous information on 2024. How did we end and why did we end in the way we ended, George, last year?
Well, I mean, 2023 was a year of transformation. I mean, it was the year of the water rabbit. 2023 adds up to 7, and now 2024 we're going to go into an 8 year. So numerologically, 7 is a spiritual year. There was a lot of transformation happening, but I think when I look back at 2023, a lot of it has been sort of a little bit more inward. For a lot of people, it hasn't been so visible externally. Now, for some of us, yes, more so. But I think 2024 for me is definitely the year of a culmination. I mean, I remember years ago looking at the astrological map and feeling 2024, there's something about, especially Pluto. Pluto is this big shift in energy. And with last year, up until from 2008 till end of last year, Pluto has been in Capricorn, and that's been the dissolving of the institutions. So even if we see some institutions still visible there, it's kind of the propaganda, the propping up of those institutions that keeps them there. They're kind of hollow shells. And now, as we move into 2024, we're going to see the visibility of it coming to roost, in the sense of we're going to start to see the cracks much more visibly, where before you had to look very cleverly and sophisticatedly to see it.
Amazing. We don't tend to hear too much about Pluto. We are told, being the furthest planet away, the smallest, little insignificant, which of course is not true. I mean, nothing NASA says is true anyway in my book. Not sorry. It's true. And so it seems that with the level of kind of dominance, erupting, spiraling into our awareness on Pluto, where do you see it, and what kind of information do you think we're going to get from and via Pluto this year, and what do we need to watch out for?
So Pluto, for me this year, and I get goosebumps when I say this, by moving into Aquarius, and it's going to basically be there for until 2042, and there'll be a couple of months because of the retrograde cycle in October, November, where it will slip back for the last time into Capricorn, and then it's basically in Aquarius until 2042. So most of this year, 2024, we experience this new phenomenon of Pluto in Aquarius. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror, and before that it was Copernicus and his theory of heliocentricity that's obviously spurred the scientific revolution. I mean, these are big ticket items, and when we have Pluto in Aquarius, it really dissolves belief systems. And Pluto on its own always reveals the toxicity in any system. So on a personal level, it reveals the toxicity within our own bodies. But for a culture government, it reveals it within the systems. And those rules, those systems, those Saturnian systems, remember, Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn. They are top-down, especially Capricorn, top-down institutions. And we are beginning, and we have begun quite clearly to see the corruption, since what I say, the timeline shift of 2016. Before that, unless you were, David Icke or Alex Collier, that we weren't really awake to. I mean, you of course, but I mean, many of us were still sleepy poos before that time. And now we're beginning to see those systems are so corrupt. They don't serve humanity. So when we look at Pluto in Aquarius really is really part of it. The archetype is looking at artificial intelligence. AI is actually neutral, but when the algorithms are programmed in a way that is part of the death cult, to quote Elon Musk, they are part of a very clear systemic system to actually not only control humanity, but to limit human beings' biological abilities to grow, to create, to love. That is when it's deeply toxic, and that's been revealed. I mean, I've said this to you before, we all say this, that if the Hillary timeline had gone on in 2016, we wouldn't, as frogs, we wouldn't have realized that we were being boiled alive. in a pot of water. The point is, we are learning that we are being boiled alive, so we're able to get out in time and change the temperature and change our reality. And Pluto in Aquarius is really about shifting our perspective, our ontology, our epistemology, our sense of who are we. I mean, David Icke, for example, talks about the perceptual matrix in his book, The Trap. It's brilliant. You know, we have lived in this holographic reality, and now we're breaking out of the matrix. We're beginning to understand our connection to ourselves, and as above, so below. So this is the big thing for this year. It's going to be a massive, massive growth spurt for humanity. But for those who are not so awake, it is going to be very hard, because they're going to have a lot of catching up. And I think that's where people like yourselves and our communities are really getting prepared to help as many of those people as possible, when really the downloads and the disclosures come much more to the population.
Wonderfully stated, sir. Royally, regally stated, George H. Lewis, as always.
Well, hopefully meritocratically stated.
And positively and authoritatively. Authoritatively. Now, oh gosh, I love the way that you bring in David Icke. This year, I hope that people, the masses that watch YouTube and watch platforms, I hope they have the courage in themselves to call out the seekers of fame, the defamers, the false, the Saturnian influence, darker agenda beings that are every day on every screen that we ever see. David Icke, over 30 years of putting into the field. I was talking to my mum the other day, and she was saying, yeah, but, or was it my sister? I forget, both. But anyway, talking about David Icke, I'm like, you know, so much of what he said 30 plus years ago, you got all these bloody Muppets on television claiming and espousing David Icke's work as if it were their own, not remotely acknowledging the great man's sacrifice, his suffering, his death threats, his children's suffering, his wife. And may we, as a mass humanity of love and care and honesty, whatever star sign we are, whatever planets are guiding us this year, can we look to the honesty and really herald great legendary heroes, the brave ones, the real warriors, not the plastic warriors like David Icke? It doesn't mean that you need to acknowledge everything. Like my sister was saying, yeah, but he went on Terry Wogan. Do you remember the Wogan show? Hello, how
Yeah, of course.
My name's Terry Wogan. I mean, I'm dead now, but when I was alive, I was very popular. And he was indeed a very popular fella, but he died. Before he died,
That's quite an accent.
I tell you, I'm good though. I'm good. Don't get me started on Northern Ireland. Shut your mouth, yay. Do you remember that? Ian, what was that fella? Ian
Paisley. Ian Paisley.
Ian Paisley.
Actually, I've got a good one for you, Ian Paisley. Apparently, there was an old woman at one of his rallies where he was preaching, and he said, there will be much wailing and gnashing of teeth. And this little old woman at the beginning, right at the front, said, but sir, I don't have any teeth. And he says, teeth will be provided.
Oh my God. Oh, he was I mean, again, here we go. Oh my God, with rattling the Americans. It's all right. We got you. Now, don't rattle the Americans, because a lot of them were misfed. Terrible information about the IRA, who was funding it, what it was all about. When I lived in Canada, and I was a nursery nurse years ago, living in Canada, Calgary, Alberta, I remember meeting a couple of other nannies, other nursery nurses who were supportive of, and then some Canadian girls we met were supportive of the IRA. And these other girls, not me, almost got into a fight in a scummy bathroom in a nightclub. I'm like, why are we so misguided? This is 20 plus years ago, you know? But anyway, we are coming, the light is shining on the dark, on the misinformers. And, you know, I forget what Ian Paisley really stood for. I just know he was a character. He was around the time of Terry Wogan, David Icke, 30 odd years ago. And there's more now history that was covered up, coming back to surface for us to have a look at and go, oh my goodness, that was real, that wasn't. That was a lie, that wasn't. You know, and I wonder, in your opinion, do you think the influence of Pluto, the Plutonian energy from the planet herself itself, has any kind of bearing on the light that's coming into us, that we shed more of that Saturnian dominance in us, and we're able to absorb more light and see more? What do you think about that?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, I mean, the light codes, the photon light coming in is more connected to our position within the Milky Way. I mean, we've talked about this off air, you and I, that when we were younger, the sun was more yellow. It is now more white. And the sense that the energetics of the solar, our star, our sun, have shifted, are changing, and consciousness is on the rise. It's part of the Kalaluga conversation of where we are in that great cycle. I mean, Plato talks a little bit about it in his conversation on the great year, the precession of the equinox. And I genuinely feel it is now that we're entering into the age of Aquarius. I mean, yes, that wonderful song in the 70s, and of course it doesn't happen overnight. So I think for me, these are more big cosmic cycles and our connection to source. Now, Saturn, what Saturn tends to do, I'm talking really negative Saturn, is it wants to control, restrict, and keep back forward march progress. On a positive level, we have to individually use Saturn for architectural foundation, for stability from which to launch our creativity. See, this is why I love the archetypes. You know, what I call positive Saturn is creating the bedrock for us to launch into our loving creative spirit, which is so innately human. And so, for example, this year, 2024, because it adds up to 8, it is actually a Saturn number. So we're going to see the role of power come really into the spotlight. And it does coincide with the United States election. And it's all about that in a way, because at the end of the day, it is already being revealed. It's going to be really revealed even more just how negative this Saturnian archetype of the death cult is and has been to control humanity, to limit humanity, to depopulate humanity, to transhumanate humanity. But as the truth breaks out, then the new system can be based. And this is part of this Saturnian, if you like, the alchemical process. I mean, you see it with King Lear in Shakespeare, the death of the king, long live the king. It's a cycle. One has to we have to get to the death of the old system, because this is what happens. This is what happened in the medieval period. This is what happened in the Renaissance period. This is what happened in the revolutionary wars against the tyranny of Great Britain and the French Revolution. And here we are again, but it's different this time. Why? Because AI, ironically, is allowing we, the people, to have access to information. Yes, a lot of misinformation, but also a lot of information to awaken us to our reality, or the reality of the perceptual control matrix, back to Ike. And this is where I'm very positive. It's going to be messy this year, but it is very exciting, because we've come here to experience this. We've come here actually to chaperone, all of us in our way, as I learn, chaperone other people who are a little slower in their awakening process to catch up. And then the people who've chaperoned me all my life to keep moving forward. We're always helping each other. It's like a wonderful, beautiful wave, an energetic wave. I fall back, he pulls me forward. And so, and that's part of it, when you say people plagiarizing David Icke, part of the freedom, real freedom, is to own the fact that we have mentors, to own the fact that we learn from multiple sources and we're not ego-driven maniacs thinking we're in control. That's negative Saturn. Positive Saturn is having that foundation to say, my gosh, I'm learning from Dani, I'm learning from Mr. Icke, I'm learning from whomever it is. And then to share that open source. You see, the new reality is open source. It's no longer patents hidden away in the secret annals of the Vatican box, etc.
Yeah, I think another element of that is, again, Saturnian dominance being financial, is that we were so programmed from little young ones that to be famous equals to have money, to have power. And so hide everything, step on people on the way up. A lot of people have done that, do that. And we've witnessed that, and that their goal would be to have the millions. And we've realized that is a fallacy, a failing in the system. The financial system cannot support itself. Because it's been so usurped by the death cult that is now itself dying, eating its own tail, the snake. It's very interesting. And like you say, open source, now we come together as a humanity. We come together in these beautiful circular councils, these bodies, these voices, these souls, and we all lift each other up and we all ride forward with each other, which was the ancient ways, the ways of Atlantis, the ways of Lemuria. And we take control and we dismiss the dog turds. That remind me, I've said this before, of a dog with dreadful diarrhea running away and shitting itself. That to me is the former leaders of all the crime families. And again, we've got to remember the program. We're programmed to think crime family equals mafia equals Italy. No, it doesn't. crime family equals banking family equals presidents, the presidents and the prime ministers of the countries around the planet. They are the crime families run by other criminal minds, not clever ones, but, you know,
No,
Saturnian influenced ones.
I mean, it's spot on because Saturn rules Capricorn, and Capricorn, obviously, in the tarot is the devil card, but it rules financial control. And this is the thing: we've had this top-down, Earth-based reality of you know, king and queen at the top, very strict pyramidic power structures, and that's all crumbling. You know, this is what the age of Aquarius really is about. It's, you know, humanity now stands at this amazing, significant crossroads. You know, it is the battle really between human and artificial intelligence, and that battle is raging very hard now, and it's a time of great tumult, chaos, confusion, but possibilities, and something magical and new is breaking through. And I feel we're going to experience it profoundly this year.
Yeah, I really think you're right. And again, you know, the legends of the past who have been usurped by negativity, by negative dominance, by people seeking fame for their own gain and to gather following of an army of supporters, which again, no more one sovereign head. Done, you know, or Queenie popped her clogs by there. Let that be an influence of the reality of what we've now cycled into for the greater good of humanity. Not one God. May we also see how that is so sets us all up for failure, because then all the idiots of all the different religions, they then kill each other because they want their God to be, no, my God, no, my God, no, my God. And we got to look like in the body, is anyone watching this getting triggered by that? If you are, that's a program. May we please recognize the programs in our vessel. These are programmed organic vessels that we inhabit. From birth to now, we have been programmed. We have been primed and trained and groomed to respond, to react to stimuli, no matter what that stimuli might be. And religion and science and authority are three massive areas where we, as these influential beings, can get influence. Now, each planet, each star system that you so eloquently share with us in terms of astrology, is governed by energy fields, frequencies. Would you say, is there any particular people at this time in the month of January, the Capricorn vibration, any particular band of people do you feel might be extra sensitive at the moment? Maybe, right, go ahead.
Well, so obviously what's really fun talking with you today is actually bang on tomorrow on the 11th. We're on the 10th today, but we're going into the 11th. We have the new moon in Capricorn. A new moon means when the sun and the moon come together, and they'll come together at around 22, 23 degrees Capricorn. And I think what's very interesting, that is all about new beginnings. So this is a really good time. It's like the New Year resolution to put down some manifestations, some plans, some ideals for the future, for yourself individually. And the more we do that collectively, the more we raise that vibration, that Schumann resonance, to counteract any of the negative stuff. Because as you've intimated already, so much of the system has been a combination of economic occult magic. I mean, when you break it down, you know, and obviously many of us, not myself, I wish I had more time to become more of an expert in this, understanding maritime law, understanding just how we are tied, you know, to the legality of the City of London, the Vatican, the city states, all this stuff is coming out. And we have to free ourselves on it. It's going to take some time. This is part of the age of Aquarius, is to free ourselves from those dark Saturnian Capricorn situations. So the new moon in Capricorn is definitely going to help people set up a new way of looking at the world. So if people have strong signatures astrologically in Capricorn, but also Aries, Libra, and Cancer, which is what's called the cardinal axis. That is the 90-degree point. So Capricorn is opposite Cancer, and then you've got Libra is opposite Aries, because you've also got the nodes there. I know this gets a bit technical, but if I were to show you on the zodiac map, that is the hard aspect where those four zodiac signs in particular are going to be affected. So anyone with a Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, Aries signature. I'm not just talking sun sign here. You know, you could have a moon there, you have ascendant there, you could have a stellium of planets like Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn in one of those signs. You're going to be more affected. And the other thing is the nodal axis. when the nodes go through, it triggers shifts. I mean, I've done at least 6 or 7 readings just in the last few days for people. And a lot of the people who've come to me recently have their nodes either in Libra and or Aries, which means they're going through a 19-year cycle. And they are coming up to some big culminations, some big shifts, getting divorced, new jobs, maybe some loss, maybe some gains, some big changes. And so that's why I love the astrological language, because it helps us see what's coming down the pipeline, get anticipated for it, get prepared for it, and then you have your creativity, your self-sovereignty to respond to these events rather than blindly. What did Carl Jung say? To make the unconscious conscious stops you thinking it's fate. So I haven't quite got that right, but we have to make the unconscious conscious, because otherwise we end up thinking that's fate. This is where free will comes into play with predetermination. We are masters of our universe. Now, we've been hijacked, yes, but the more we learn it, we pull it back, we reveal, we come out of the cave, think the allegory of the cave by Plato, and suddenly here we are, blinded by the light, think Dani and Brinkley, but in a way, suddenly all these opportunities, it's wonderful.
I like him, Dani and Brinkley. I haven't seen him for a long time.
Yeah.
I remember watching 2 or 3 of his interviews that he did years ago with David Wilcock.
David Wilcock. Yeah.
I used to love watching him as well. There's been some really good guys over the years, still are. But I feel like, again, we're going to be like revisiting, going back to some of the former, kind of guardians, cardinals that set up this kind of strong energy that we're falling back to, because the ones who've tried to take over and usurp, and they're jumping on television and they're jumping on news broadcasts and they're talking shite, out of the back door in themselves, and again, not giving the justice and the love and the energy. And so they're building a house of cards that has no foundation, no cardinal, strength support. And so we'll see more of that. And I don't wish ill will on anyone. I don't care enough about them to, but I do hope that people that we know have gone through absolute hell, that were original kind of progenitors, of new information and coming together, are going to be there. I did a therapy session the other day with a lovely 22-year-old man. And he's just kind of opening up to astrology, astronomy, and numerology, being the ancient science of numbers. And I said to him, well, as a 22-year-old man, you are in what we call a superpower number year, or a magical year, or a master year. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we go 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66. And I was saying to him, well, you've had some bumpy years. He's a Libra, and you're in this 22nd year right now. And so what you choose, knowing this information, to lay out before you to go for, will stand you in greater stead energetically and potentially successfully, but having the awareness that you're working within the energetics of a master year for yourself. Now, you also said that the Librans, and he was a Libra, I think he was a Libra, like October 5th, 2nd.
Yeah, that's Libra, second decan.
Right. So you're saying that these are extra sensitive, or could be the most affected at this time, but it could be for the positive too, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing with energy. When energy goes, then we have a choice of how we're going to use that energy. And of course, in astrology, depending on where the malefics, which are Saturn and Mars, how they're activating our chart, means whether it will go more negative. And as we know, our reality means when we have something negative, it's because we have a lesson to learn. And if we can come through that negativity, we're much more blessed, and we're emboldened to take on the new chapter in our life. It is just the way it is. The negativity, if we can move through it, is there actually to support us in the long run. It just doesn't feel like that initially. So those with a Libra signature, even if you're 22 years old, you're still having the nodal axis dominate your chart because of the Aries opposite Libra, but also Eris, the goddess of discord and strife, is making a direct opposition to the sun in Libra, depending on where in the charts you are with Libra, to make whether it's a direct opposition or a loose one. So there are these other planetary signifiers which are having some effect on them, and certainly with Aries and Libra, it's a big time of shifting. Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, I could share with you, because we're at the beginning of 2024, if it's helpful for your listeners, just what the big ticket items are this year to look out for astrologically. Would that be useful?
Oh, no, of course it would.
So, I mean, So obviously the Pluto in Aquarius is for the next 20 years. That's the big one. We'll talk more about that over the coming months. The other one will be Saturn has moved into Pisces for the last 8 months. So it's going to slowly start to conjoin Neptune. And that's going to be an interesting one to observe. When Saturn, the master of control, likes to be in an earth sign, or Aquarius moves into a water sign and then comes close to Neptune, which is dissolving structures, that tells you an awful lot. There is a strong indication that the old structures are literally going to be dissolved. Think of the alchemical process. And so we're going to start to see that in particular in 2025 when the conjunction becomes exact, late 2025. But obviously this year it's pushing towards it. The other one would be the Jupiter conjunct Uranus. And that's something I've spoken a lot about, and I'll continue to, because this is big. And we're going to see it culminate in April this year. When Jupiter comes close to Uranus, that's another indication that Saturn, the old system, is going to be eviscerated, because Jupiter is the son of Saturn and he overthrows him in the myth. And of course, Saturn castrated his father Uranus, and Uranus is teaming up with Jupiter. So it's all there in the myth. We're going to see some big new realities come in. And because it's in Taurus, probably gold, silver, probably Bitcoin, probably XRP, who knows what they are. I'm not an expert, but some form of crypto, new currency, decentralized Uranus, coming away from the fiat digital bank. Even if they're pushing as hard as they are here in Europe, there's hardly any cash at the moment. It looks like we're coming to the brink, but I don't believe it, looking at the astrology, that we are going to go into this new world order. I think it's going to become decentralized at some point. So that's something to watch. And then the other one would be obviously the eclipse series. That's so interesting, because in 2016 we had that great eclipse over the United States, and we have this other eclipse now going over the United States in the election year of 2024. You can't make this stuff up. That eclipse also goes right over some of those, galactic sites that you know so much about down in Roswell, and the revelation of secrets and deep underground military bases and hidden artifacts in Arizona and New Mexico and down there. And, all the comets are going to start shining over April and again in October, November this year in time for the election. And there's some fascinating stuff this year. It's very spiritual. It's very esoteric. It's very galactic.
Yeah, it really is. It hits every single system, every single layer, and every single thought form all at the same time, to ensure that each individual soul spark, the God spark in each person that lives, each being with a heart and a soul to actually feel and think and be, has an opportunity to get its information into the system and then put back into the field and be in balance with self and harmony with its, surrounding ethos, economy, whatever you want to call it. It is such a mind-blowing time. And there's so many things that you just said there, beautifully dropped in, beautifully layered in to make us all think, because it is such a time as this for all of us to get, what we need. And in terms of disintegrating and collapsing of systems, I am so excited. These two books came today. This one is called The UCC Connection: How to Free Yourself from Legal Tyranny. We the People. Governments are instituted amongst men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So this is about how abusive all of the governments are, especially the American government, in making people pay taxes. The other book is, and this is a really big one, Meet Your Straw Man, and whatever you want to know, right? The straw man, we the people. Again, letting you know how illegal paying taxes, how illegal it is. I mean, how dare anyone, imagine, say you earn £100 and the greedy little stinky winkers come along and they take £25. Where does it go? Probably up their noses, for some of them. And I don't care, just so we're clear, I don't care, to the viewers out there that might be offended. Go and watch something else. Because if you're more worried about me having a pop and making fun of the cocaine addicts running the governments and whatever else, filth that they're into, but you don't care to take a moment to understand that reading these teeny tiny books could free you from the tyranny of the governments that own your money. And again, with the banking system, the digital, they're trying to force us. I mean, I'm in England right now, as you know, and I'm just But I said to my parents, I said, that's it, I'm just going to run for prime minister. And they kind of looked at me and laughed. They went, haven't you got enough going on right now? Like, I cannot believe what I'm witnessing. The stupidity of the British government. It's on a next level of dum-dums. I mean, America's just as bad because I've been living there on and off for 20 years. And now I'm here. I'm looking at politics here and I'm like, who hires these Muppets, these windbags? They're letting our elderly die. They're letting them freeze to death because the elderly are too scared to put their heating on. That it's an abomination of evil. They're not up some mountain in farthest jungles of India, you know, out of sight, away from, they're in a city, they're in a metropolis. There's no reason why anyone should die of the cold in the Western world. You know what else they've done over here in Britain, George, which is, to me, is horrific. But don't worry, because we're coming out of it. But they have programmed the British people, hardwired. How many people every day, smart, intelligent people, are saying, cost of living crisis, cost of living crisis, cost of living crisis, cost of living crisis, cost of living crisis. I'm like, stop. What? I said, did you hear what you just said? What do you mean? I said, you said cost of living. They went, yeah, cost of living crisis, cost of living crisis. I'm like, that is a program. Watch the program. There's no such thing as the cost of living crisis. There's the crisis of the government's running and spending our money and telling us because of what we did, there's a cost of living crisis. Shut up, sit down, you're all fired. You make me sick, go away. I don't care. If you're offended, watch something else. We got to get past all of this. Right. While we're all being offended and fighting each other, old people are dying in their homes. They can't put their gas on. They can't put their heating on. You know, it's enough now. So let's get an education, educate yourselves. Let's all link arms together around the world and push down the sewer that is all the governments together. And we all stand and we rise and we create the world that we demand to live. What say you to that?
I mean, well, it's wonderful because those two books I look forward to reading, but they are great exemplars of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. What do I mean by that? Is the revelation of the straw man, the revelation of maritime law, the revelation of the occult magic used in economic systems to enslave humanity. And, you know, none of us were aware of that 10 to 20 years ago. It is what it is. And so for me, there is a buoyancy, there is an optimism, grounded in some real evidence here, not vacuous optimism, but these books are coming out fast and furious. You know, I mean, there's so many people now doing the work, doing the research and revealing it to we the people, open source, or, you know, open publishing, or getting sponsorship in a different way rather than relying on Random House or whichever the publishing penguin companies.
Yeah.
You know, this is really a year to step into our radical freedom for us human beings to flourish. This is what the North Node in Aries does, by the way. It wants to break out to create so we can prosper. And what was it Benjamin Franklin said? Security without freedom is tyranny. And I think he also said those who prefer security over freedom deserve neither. You know, it is really about stepping into our ability to co-create as freedom-loving people, and with our direct connection to source. And that, of course, then brings in the conversation about the other gods, in inverted commas, and who those control systems and extraterrestrials or hybrids were. And we're really learning about it. You know, many of the gods that we once worshipped were literally you know, non-terrestrial people or entities. And you know, we've got to go now to source consciousness.
Source consciousness. I was at the British Museum in London this week with Elena Danan. Number one, she's my best friend, as you know, but she's also the earth emissary, the deliverer of messages and the news, what's happening in the galaxy, because no one listens to NASA, because NASA failed. Jesus, NASA had a job to do, couldn't do it, so it's got moved along. Elena Danan's been there in the background. NASA even follow her. That's been proven, that's been written about, that's been scientifically proven, with people coming out, naming names online to say that people are watching Elena Danan. Dr. Michael Sala is one, and Dave Rossi is another. 2 reference points. So that's what else we need to do. Name the people doing the good work, give them the kudos, and if you're going to reference something, back it up with a name. This is how we do it. This is how we bring truth, right? So we went to the London Museum, Elena and we both went to see different things. I started downstairs in Egypt and she was upstairs in Mesopotamia, because like me, that's another reason why we're best friends. If I go to a museum, don't come near me. Don't move me along. You know, if I want to go to the Louvre in Paris and I want to stand in front of the Mona Lisa for an hour, you pop off, you pop along, you go do what you want. I'm going to stand there and I'm going to breathe that in once all the Orientals have stopped blocking my view. Watch people get rattled by that. It's so funny. We're so sensitive, aren't we? Oh dear, oh dear. But it's true. There are so many of our beautiful Oriental brothers and sisters. That's what we grow up, you and I, and our.
Can I just jump in on that? Because this is where people just got to start to go with intention. So when one makes a joke, knowing the intention of someone, which is really quite divine and jokey and positive, you know, like one can joke, as me as a Brit, about we have ghastly food cuisine historically, you know, we're a nation of shopkeepers, as Napoleon once said, or Chirac said, you know, life is too short. If we take things so personally, that means you've got a lot of work still to do on yourself. Because unless we really are being radically racist, which you can tell energetically when someone is, that is obviously absolutely unacceptable. But, you know, it's fun to have a little bit of a joke, because and as long as you joke at yourself, you know, I mean, I always love 40 Towers, because at the end of the day, Basil Fawlty in those 12 episodes sent up every single nationality in each episode. But what he did do brilliantly, in every single episode, he totally sent up himself. So he was the most ridiculous of them all. So
Right.
then he can send up, because we're all ridiculous.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. And you're so right. Oh yeah, I used to get stressed out watching Fawlty Towers, which is
It is dreadful.
Those that don't know, it's a British sitcom in the 1970s. And it was John Cleese, who I think is a comic genius, who was very massive in creating Monty Python. All the Americans are going, Monty Python, anything funny.
And a fish called Wonder. And most Americans know him because of the fish called Wonder. You know.
Really, I love that film too. Don't call me stupid. Remember that? So funny. Oh, so funny. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten what I was going to say now, but I was talking about, making fun, and I was about the Orientals like blocking the Mona Lisa. It's funny and it's true. And the other thing is, you get some people saying, don't you fat shame fat people. You know, I've joked about gaining a few pounds. I'm a bit of a biffer right now for me. I'm what I call fat for me. And I can say what I like and I can do what I like. If I was a complete horrible person and I was cruel and I was awful to people, damn right, turn me off, delete me. But we've got to get being so sensitive to everything. And then there are people jumping into other people's issues because they haven't got anything to worry about. They defending, and it's just got so silly, you know, and the this and the them and the they and the us and the rhinos and the bears and all of that. It's like, stop it. You know, decide what you're going to get involved in this year. Decide what you're going to heal for you as an individual. Work through things like George H. Lewis here is delivering to you, information on astrology, the astrology of the year. You know, I mentioned a little bit about numerology. We're saying about getting neutral to the coding and programming out there, so we can unprogram, so we can get back to basics. We can go back to the past and remember those that really need to be remembered. We can look at side by side those who are trying to dominate and take the light by siphoning that light off those that brought it, which we see all the time. And that's how the dark ones work. They create a force, a passion in the lighted ones, make them feel a certain way, and then loosh off that, and that powers them, you know, down on a lower subatomic level. Do you see how all my crystal chandeliers are starting to shine in my face?
I know. I was just going to, it's amazing.
Well, this is the first time I've sat in this spot in my new office, and so I didn't know the time of day, so it looks like I've got sparkly chicken pox. She's got the pox. Oh, don't you shame pox, people.
I mean, anyway. it's very esoteric. It makes me think, you know, as Pluto moves into Aquarius, you know, it's really about trusting the invisible, because, you know, an air sign, Aquarius is an air sign. It's the only sign. Air is the only element that's invisible. You know, earth, water, and fire you can see. So the fact that it can't be seen, and suddenly you've got these sparkles on you. So it's almost like we have to trust. We have to trust the plan. We have to trust the invisible. We have to trust ourselves. And I think that's partly what it's. I mean, I've been learning quite a lot about sort of Russian esoteric literature over the last few months, and learning a lot about Russian Gnosticism. And one of the things which I find so interesting about the Eastern approach compared to the West, the Eastern approach basically has it's not in its doctrine, but in its actual essence, about trusting the invisible, about trusting your intuition and getting that eminence, grace, downloads from the divine, and you're sort of blessed with it. It's part of the human experience. We in the West, since the scientific revolution, and even before, because of the control of the Vatican Church, Catholic Church, was not able to allow that part of nature to come down into us. It either had to be through a priest, so it's distorted, or it's negated in the secular West through massive material scientism. And today we have, the fascism of scientism. The science is right, trust the science. And so for me, the age of Aquarius is trusting the invisible and the visible. It is the corpus callosum, linking the left and the right hemispheres. As Nietzsche would say, it's linking the Apollonian with the Dionysian. And when we do that, that's when we have the alchemy, that's when we have Thunderbirds Ago, we have liftoff, and we have the ability to really, really grow into our potential.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned the Russian energetics there, Russian archetypes, Russian the influence and the Baltics. And you brought to mind for me Madame Helena Blavatsky. And again, to highlight the point I was making throughout this broadcast, is watching people from the past who've had influence and others come along and assert that. There are many that point to they weren't there, right? Madame Blavatsky, Helena, has been dead a long time, and she created the Theosophy body of work, book and a center, and Theosophy. And I forget her partner's name, the man that was with her for a long time. I forget his name right now. But the only thing that I felt was a bit odd in some of the prophetic work that they did was apparently that people would write a little note and put it into a box in a wall, and then there would be a message and answer to that the next day. But then again, that could be the way a documentary was twisted, because we're taken from the past to the now with people interfering with information. What I liked about her initially was that she was from a wealthy family and decided she wasn't going to marry who was decided for her to marry. And she pushed against the hierarchical, patriarchal energy of her family and went off on her own and went exploring. That's my kind of girl. And then studied different philosophies around the world, studied Hinduism, and Buddhism, and then came to her own thinking and created something and left it there for us to unpack, and that, to me, that's what I learned. But now, again, the Wikipedia or the wicked pedophiles, the things that have been manipulated online, they're taking information. When I did my presentation at Gsic, our Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference, I went to check something on the Rockefellers owning the FDA, because they block and have blocked forever. It was set up by them to decide what drugs were going to be used in the world. Well, I went back just to double check my source, as a good journalist does, and it's gone. And it says something else altogether. Listen, I know you got to go soon. You literally have to go soon, right? So we have to be aware of the time. So anyway, but please continue on any vein you choose. I was going to mention Edgar Cayce as another good call for our people. So can you share what you know about Edgar Cayce for us?
Well, I mean, I love his book on Atlantis, and of course, I mean, I'm no expert on him, but the way he was able to go in with all his patients and see their past lives. And I mean, we're going back, since that to Atlantis. And I find that connection quite interesting, that many of us have incarnated at this time, almost like as a similar time at the end of Atlantis. And there may be something about this time we're going to get it right. We're here to actually not blow ourselves up, to actually help with the ascension, so this planet can really go into a higher density again, and in our experience for the first time in such a long memory. You know, our collective memory has been so squashed. So I love Edgar Cayce. I mean, I love the Theosophical movement and Theosophical Society of Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah.
And of course, you see, you know, other people like Aleister Crowley, you know, go more towards the darkness, the light, rather than the light. They go, you know, it became very negative in my mind and my understanding of it, of Aleister Crowley. And there's much speculation about him and his offspring and connection to one of the most powerful American presidential families. It's very fascinating to learn this, you know, and I think we are in this time of great disclosure. We have to be very mindful when this information comes out, not to totally trust it, but to be open to it. That's part of really the Pluto in Aquarius. It's really behooving us to be open to learning our real history, our new history, and revealing secrets. Pluto is criminal. Pluto is the depths. It's libidinal. It's sexual. It's violent. It's deeply transformative and restorative. It's very excessive, the archetype of Pluto. So we've really got to be aware, whether we are a fundamental atheist in New York City or a fundamental Christian in Tennessee, we've really got to be understanding, as you said at the beginning, of our programming. And those people who react head in the sand and don't want to do the investigations, they're going to really struggle over the coming years. Those, by contrast, who are open to new information, new ways of being, new levels of consciousness, it's going to be very beautiful. So, you know, Mercury right now is conjunct the galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius. So big downloads are on the menu for us if we want, especially in areas of healing and spiritual matters. You know, in some ways, Madame Blavatsky's time with the spiritual movement of the late 19th century, they didn't have the internet to get it into a global way. We weren't ready as a collective entity, as a consciousness, but we are now more. And it doesn't take much, you know, only needs 10, 20, 30% of the population at the very most to push it. And then it's just, the rest just falls into place. And I think that's what we're doing. It's amazing how we've grown just since 2016. I mean, the appetite for civil war was huge in 16, 17, 18, even up to 2020. The appetite for civil war, and civil war globally, really, a global war of just, you know, internecine warfare, is all been but squashed. People don't have the appetite because deep down in their souls, they know they've been lied to, they've been conned. I mean, here in Britain, it's a Capricorn country, people are very polite, and they may not like the posturing of American, you know, out there pushing aggression, but at the end of the day, deep down, they know they've been conned.
Absolutely. And I think enough of our sons and daughters have been slaughtered and murdered. And it's time to stop sending them, breeding them, and sending them off to fight wars for greedy men that don't care about any of the countries that they are, because they own them all. Just a quick word on Edgar Cayce, again, always wanting to bring information to people new in our field. Edgar Cayce is spelt with a C-A-Y-C-E. He's dead now, but his institution is in Virginia Beach. Edgar Cayce, Virginia Beach. And as we're purging and we're coming back into full health alignment in our bodies, removing the pharmacology that was from the past to more old-fashioned ways, we come to understand that Edgar Cayce's work encompassed the use of castor oil. And he would take a patient, he would use a skin or a rags or whatever over the bowel, and then he would soak castor oil, and that would work on the outside of the body and remove sludge and help constipation. I remember my grandma years ago saying to my mom when she was pregnant with my sister that she should take castor oil while she was giving birth to help. I mean, people call them old wives' tales for a reason. But anyway, again, we're re-educating. We're taking from the past what always worked. We're kicking over the house of cards that the fake ones have made. And we're re-establishing who we are as a humanity, linking arms together, standing together, shoulder to shoulder, back to back, in love, and moving forward and open sourcing everywhere. Right, George?
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. That's beautifully said.
Excellent. All right, darling. Well, you are our monthly resident astrologer. We will see you in February for February's astrology. This is for January 2024. Thank you so much. And please give us your final thoughts of the day.
Well, stay positive, stay in your creative bliss, create your own magic, listen and learn externally, yes, Keep learning about the programmings and the deceit, but don't let it own you. Pull it back to your own loving creativity and stay in the archetype of the victor rather than the victim.
I love it, George. That's very, very powerful. Thank you so much, my angel darling. And to you guys out there, again, get these books, Meet Your Straw Man and Whatever You Want to Know. And the other one is the UCC Connection, How to Free Yourself from Illegal Tyranny. These are the books that help you get out of the understanding of you are being robbed blind by the tax man, the IRS, and all those other little mofos, and that we take back our power. And I'm going to read these, get an education, watch a few videos. You guys do the same. Let's all have a chat and share the information on this channel, the greatest disclosure channel in the universe. My name is Dani Henderson. I do send love from my heart to yours and look forward to having George H. Lewis back here at the beginning of February. Mwah. Aloha, everybody.